Hiya and welcome to the Teen Whisperer, the podcast for mums or daughters aged 9 to 25 who are trying their best to figure out this whole, teenager thing without completely losing the plot. I'm Rach Friedley and I help mums just like you build stronger, more connected relationships with their daughters by understanding what's really going on beneath all those behaviours. You know, the ones I mean, the eye rolls, the slammed doors and the screaming in your face ones. Oh yes, and I'm also a mum, so 100% get how you're feeling. So this week I'm doing things a little bit different, and I have got the amazing Sally here from S&L Safe Cuts Kit. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right, there you go. So we are going to talk about self-harming and things like that. So, hi Sally, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Thanks for having me, Rach.
That's right, no problems. So yeah, self-harming is a topic that has been taboo for way too many years, and it's not talked about, but we want to change that. So between the Teen Whisperer and Sally of S&L Safe Cuts, we are going to change that. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Sally. So why did you come to this?
Okay, so my daughter started self-harming when she was 11. I received a phone call from the head teacher of her primary school telling me that she'd been self-harming in the changing rooms, and up to that point I had no idea. I didn't even really know what self-harm was at that stage, and if I'm perfectly honest, I didn't deal with it very well at all.
That sounds an incredibly hard time for you, to have a phone call from school and then be told of something that you had no idea of. How did it make you feel?
Yeah, it was really difficult. I mean, obviously, I was scared. I didn't know how to deal with the situation. I didn't know where it was going to lead. But I also felt like a bad mother. I'd let my daughter down. How did this happen? I was ashamed. But, over time, I've learned that it's not about me. It's about, self-harm and dealing with it. And that's why I kind of do what I do now.
So from a very low place, you've come up with this amazing business which now supports young people, adults that are going through similar situations from where your daughter was?
Yeah, so when obviously we received the phone call from the school, it was a safeguarding issue, of course. So we had social services and family support come and work with us. And I will say they're amazing. Don't ever be afraid to have these services come and work with you, because they're not there to take away your child. They are there to assist you as a family. And one of them said to me, you need to put a kit together for her. And I just had absolutely no idea where to start, what was needed. I went on our mate Google, who just came up with random first aid kits or a bunch of leaflets which weren't any good to either of us. So a couple of years on, after I'd done a bit of research, obviously we'd had the experience, we were still going through our self-harm recovery. I came up with the idea of putting kits together to support young people, children, adults who are struggling with self-harm, and obviously to put for the families to have that support that I was never given.
That is totally amazing. From, as I say, from something so absolutely frigging horrendous to come up with this idea and then to put it to fruition. That is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And all those, I mean, I know that you support a lot of people out there right now, and it's not just about the kids. It's about a lot more, isn't it?
Yeah. I do get lots of messages asking for advice, support. I'm not qualified. I'm just a mum that's been through it. But obviously, I kind of know what I'm talking about now. I've done lots and lots of research and lots of the facts behind the reasons behind self-harm. And and I get it, so it's non-judgmental. I've been through it the same as you have. And there is no guilt, there is no shame. I really want to try and break the stigma, because it's when there's so much stigma around it that self-harm is hidden, and that's when it's dangerous. That's when the young person or child will hide it. And then it's obviously, you can risk then infections, nasty scarring. And, you know, I am just a mum. I didn't know my child was self-harming. Doesn't make me a bad mum.
No, not at
You
all.
know, it's just a situation that we were put in, and we just deal with it. You know, we just deal with the storms that we're given.
Yeah. I'm just going to tackle your comment, I'm just a mum. There is no such thing as just a mum. What you're doing is friggin' amazing.
Thank you.
And being a mum is one of the hardest jobs in the world. There's no getting around it, because we're not given any advice on, or any kind of guidance as to what the heck is going to happen throughout our teenagers' lives or our children's lives.
And that's actually why I want to be able to support parents who do have children that self-harm to navigate that journey, because it's bloody hard, you know, and it's scary, and it's not a quick fix always. You know, if we can try and nip it in the bud early, then all well and good. But self-harm can take hold, become a bit of an addiction, and then obviously it's more difficult to manage.
Yeah.
But there is light at the end of the tunnel. You know, my daughter's been self-harm free for about 2 years.
That's amazing.
So, you know, with the right tools, the right advice, the right support, you can definitely get through it. So, you know, don't be demoralised that you're in this situation, it's never going to end. It does end, and it will end.
Yeah, yeah, as you say, with the right level of support around you, the right people who've been there through it, managed it, understood it, and could be in your corner, is just life-changing, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Emotional.
Yeah, and because, you know, the kits focus on obviously replacing self-harm with much safer alternatives. So it's like a distraction technique.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, hopefully over time, the young person, the child, the adult, whoever is self-harming, will turn to the safer, healthier strategies rather than to the self-harm. But it's not a quick fix. It won't happen overnight. Having a kit isn't a magic wand. It's just another tool to be able to open a conversation with your young person, to have that little bit more understanding about how self-harm affects the body, about the endorphins, that type of thing. And again, ways and methods to introduce those safer coping strategies.
Yeah. And I suppose a big part of it also is, I mean, this is going from my experience as a mum of a teenage girl, how they are ashamed of putting their stuff on top of us. They don't want to be seen about it, do they?
Yeah. I mean, when I found out that my daughter was self-harming, I can remember going into her bedroom and begging her to stop, and I started to cry, she started to cry. And what I know now is actually when a person, a child, self-harms, they have a massive amount of self-loathe and guilt, and they feel horrible about themselves. So when you then act like, you know, when you show them that you're upset and emotional, it just puts that additional bit of guilt on them. Yeah. So actually it makes that whole cycle of self-harm much worse for them. You know, it's so difficult to say you need to do this and you need to do that, because when you're in that moment it is so hard. But it is just trying to just keep them conversations open, try not to, you know, be too emotional about it, because you don't want them to feel guilty. You want them to be able to trust that they can come to you and say, this has happened, this is what I'm doing, and you're not going to freak out, you're not going to get upset, you're not going to shout, you know, you're just going to say, okay, what can we do to solve this? And that's really key to the start of recovery.
So it's about being there. I mean, I call it like a safe anchor. So it's about being that space for them to, whenever they're ready, to come to you, to talk to you and be open, isn't it?
Yeah, and my daughter was never one to talk to me. So we used to communicate a lot on text message. And we had like a little code where if she was having like a bad day and she felt as if she was going to perhaps injure herself, she would send me a text message of fish. If she was having a good day, she would send me a text message of chips. So we had the fish and chip code. And if she did cut, she would move an ornament on my mantelpiece.
Right, okay.
So she didn't have
Yeah.
to tell me. I
That's
would just
brilliant,
notice
isn't it?
that the ornament had moved,
Yeah.
and I would then know that she needed perhaps some additional first aid, some
Yeah.
additional support,
Yeah.
whatever it was that she needed. But she didn't actually have to verbalise it to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
It was just this little kind of secret code that we had that nobody else knew about, and
Mhm.
that kind of worked for us. It took the pressure off her.
Yeah. Takes the
Having
stigma
to
off her again,
tell
doesn't
me.
it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they don't always even know how they feel.
No, they
So
don't.
how can they express themselves if they don't know themselves?
No. All they know is the behaviour that comes out of them. So the self-harming
Absolutely.
obviously is a behaviour.
Yeah,
But
and
they
it's
don't
all
know
to do
what.
with the endorphin release that you get from the brain when when you're in pain. You get these natural endorphins that release from the brain that are
Yeah.
the body's relaxant natural painkiller. Which is why when somebody self harms initially, they
Yeah.
have that moment of kind of calm and
Yeah.
relaxation, and
They
it
have
kind of
that
feels
release,
good.
don't they? Yeah.
When their endorphins wear off after between 5 and 30 minutes, they then feel rubbish. They
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
have the guilt, the shame, the regret.
Yeah.
Obviously, the underlying issues are still there as to why they
Yeah.
self harmed.
Yeah.
The tension builds again, and we go back to the self harm behaviour. So
Yeah.
it's just breaking that cycle with, tools, techniques, resources,
Mhm.
therapy, counselling, whatever it is that takes. One
Yeah.
thing alone won't break that
Yeah.
cycle.
No.
But it's definitely possible.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I'm with you about the whole. It doesn't take one thing to just sort it all out. They'd say the saying about it takes a community to bring up a child, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
this is what we're saying. You need lots of other support networks.
Yeah, I'd love to say, having a kit is a magic wand, but unfortunately it's not. But it's definitely a way of opening up those lines of communication, go through the kits together, look at all the resources that are in there, and have a good chat about it.
Yeah.
And, hopefully then those items in there can help to distract and significantly reduce the need to self-injure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's absolutely brilliant. I'm loving the fact that you've given us some kind of like tools already. So, as you say, with your daughter struggling, because as we say, communication, as when they were babies, they couldn't communicate, but our teenagers have communication in a completely different way. It's in the behaviours, isn't it? So if she moves something on your an ornament on your mantelpiece, then you know she's struggling. You have your code words. Ours was banana. I'm loving fish and chips though. We only had banana. And then it gives her a safe release of what is going on for her without having to blurt it all out and having to talk it out with somebody. It's like having the communication card. My daughter's come up with these, which is great for in that moment when you can't communicate, and then you're able to pass it on to somebody. That's another way of doing things, but it's just like giving these simple
finding
tools.
what works for you. For your, every family, every child is different.
Yes.
Some children are really, really good at talking and expressing themselves. Fantastic. Other children just aren't. So it's just finding that way that you can communicate, where you can understand each other, and just support each other really. Because as a parent, when you go through something like self-harm, it's really bloody hard, and it can be very dark, very lonely. Making sure you're looking after yourself is absolutely key, because you can't look after your child broken.
No, you can't.
And it can be an absolute struggle. And as a parent, you need to seek support.
Yeah, and it's like what they say on planes, isn't it? You have to put your oxygen mask on before you put your kids on. Because if you put theirs on, you'll be dead and wouldn't be able to manage it.
100%. Yeah, you can't
after
look
yourself.
after your child broken. So we think self-care is quite selfish, but actually it's a necessity. Just taking that time for you, just to gather your thoughts, just have that chill time it's crucial, definitely.
100% with you. And by understanding those messages from the body and understanding how they come out in your daughter's behaviours and things like that, then it really helps you to understand what's going on, so you can put things in place to help them.
Completely, absolutely, and it is just finding those strategies that work.
I mean, I know we talked earlier about getting out in nature, going for a walk, doing some breathing exercises, do some meditation. All of those things are great.
There's within the kits we've got a leaflet with lots of ideas on self-care for for the self-harmer, but also, you take them on board yourself.
Yeah.
There's, so many things that you can do. Just stick music on full blast,
Yeah,
have dogs
exactly.
around the kitchen,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really important.
100%, and it's great for your daughter to see you doing stuff as well, because then she can go, okay, I'm dealing with this really shitty time right now, but actually if I did that for myself, remembering whatever you do mirrors onto your daughter,
Exactly.
they can help
Well,
themselves.
at the end of the day, as parents, our behaviour is modelling our children. So if we can admit to making mistakes, if we
Yes.
can admit to struggling, if we can demonstrate how to care for ourselves, they will see that and they will copy that.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important that we do set that kind of example to them to choose these coping strategies that are healthier.
Yeah, definitely, 100% with you. Right, I think this has been an amazing episode, and if any of this has resonated with you, please contact either me or Sally at SNL Safeguards Kids.
It's a tongue twister, isn't it?
It is a tongue twister, and I will put the link in the podcast rather than just
even
repeating
if you just Google self-harm safety kits, you'll find me. It'll come up.
That's an easier way of doing it than me trying to come up with the screen. But yes, absolutely brilliant to speak to you today, Sally. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. And I hope I have sort of helped families out there with their self-harm journey, because I understand how difficult it is, but you're not alone. You're not the only one, and you're not a bad mum.
No, exactly, and that is the key. You are definitely not a bad man. Your daughter is not broken. There is nothing wrong with her. It is just she is struggling with something right now.
Exactly that. Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem.